Chapter 4: Ethical Public Speaking. When we have an audience's attention, we are in the unusual position of being able to influence or persuade listeners, and at times to move them to act, for better or worse. With this power to affect the minds and hearts of others comes responsibility, a charge, trust, or duty for which one is accountable. Taking responsibility for your own words lies at the heart of being an ethical speaker. Ethics is the study of moral conduct. Applied to public speaking, it addresses our responsibilities when seeking influence over people and for which there are positive and negative, right or wrongs, choices of action. For example, should you show a gory photograph about warning to convince audience members not to text and drive? Should you bother to check the credibility of a suspect source before offering it to the audience? Is it ethical to present only one side of an argument? Demonstrate competence and character. Ethics is derived from the Greek word ethos, meaning character. As Aristotle first noted, audiences listen to and trust speakers if they demonstrate positive ethos or good character. Speakers in ancient Greece were regarded positively if they were well prepared, honest, and respectful toward their audience. Today, surprisingly little has changed. Modern research on source credibility reveals that people place their greatest trust in speakers who have a solid grasp of the subject, display sound reasoning skills, are honest and straightforward, are genuinely interested in the welfare of their listeners. Respect your listeners' values. Our ethical conduct is a reflection of our values, our most enduring judgments or standards of what's good and bad in life, of what's important to us. Values shape our world view and form the basis on which we judge the actions of others. Conflicting values lie at the heart of many controversial controversies that today's public speakers might address, making it difficult to speak without certain topics without challenging cherished beliefs. The United States is a country of immigrants, for example, but half of the population with only a high school education believes that immigrants threaten traditional U.S. values, while only a quarter of uh, college-educated Americans agree. Consideration of audience members' values is an important aspect of preparing an ethical speech. As you prepare speeches on controversial topics, anticipate that audience members will hold a range of values that will differ not only from your own but from each other's. Audience analysis is key to discovering and planning for these differences. Contribute to positive public discourse. An important measure of ethical speaking is whether it contributes something positive to public discourse. Speech involving issues of importance to a large community, such as whether to decriminalize marijuana or engage in a military conflict. Perhaps the most important contribution you can make to public debates of this nature is the advancement of constructive and narrow self-interest. It steers clear of incentive, verbal attacks designed to discredit and belittle those with whom you disagree. Ethical speakers avoid arguments that target a person instead of the issue at hand, ad hominem attack, or that are built upon other fallacies of reasoning. Use your rights as free speech responsibly. The United States rigorously protects free speech, defined as the right to be free from unreasonable constraints on expression, thereby assuring protection both to the speakers who treat the truth with respect and to those whose words are inflammatory and offensive. Though only legally protected under the First Amendment, which guarantees freedom concerning religion, expression of ideas, and rights of assembly and petition, racist, sexist, or ageist slurs, gay bashing, and other forms of negative or hate speech clearly are unethical. Hate speech is any offensive communication, verbal or nonverbal, directed against people's race, ethnicity, national origin, gender, religion, sexual orientation, disability, and the like. Be aware that even under the First Amendment, certain types of speech are not only unethical but actually illegal. Speech that provokes people to violence, termed incitement or fighting words. Speech that can be proved to be defamatory, termed slander, or potentially harmful to an individual's reputation at work or in the community. Speech that invades a person's privacy, such as disclosing personal information about an individual that is not in the public record. How can you tell if your speech contains defamatory language? If you are talking about public figures or matters of public concern, you will not be legally liable unless it can be shown that you spoke with reckless disregard for the truth. That is, if you knew that what you were saying was false, but said it anyways. If your comments refer to private persons, it will be easier for them to assert a claim for defamation. You will have the burden of proving that what you said was true. Quick tip: beware the heckler's veto. Drowning out a speaker's message with which you disagree, called heckler's veto, demonstrates disrespect both to the speaker and the fellow listeners. It robs the audience members of the ability to make up their own minds about an issue and silences the free expression of ideas. Tolerance for opposing viewpoints is a necessary ingredient of an ethical and democratic society. Here's a checklist for an ethical inventory. Have you distorted any information to make your point? Have you acknowledged each of your sources? Does your speech focus on issues rather than on personalities? Have you tried to foster a sense of inclusion? Does your topic add something positive to the public discourse? Have you checked your arguments for ad hominem attacks or other fallacies of reasoning? Is the content of your message supported by sound evidence and reasoning? Do you avoid speech that demeans those with whom you disagree? Observe ethical ground rules. Ethical speech rests on the foundation of dignity and integrity. Dignity refers to bearing and conduct that is respectful to self and others. Integrity signals the speaker's incorruptibility, that he or she will avoid compromising the truth for the sake of personal expediency. Speaking ethically also requires that we adhere to certain moral ground rules, or pillars of character, including being trustworthy, respectful, responsible, fair, and civic-minded. Trustworthiness is a combination of honesty and dependability. Trustworthy speakers support their points truthfully and don't offer misleading or false information. We demonstrate respect by treating audience members with civility and courtesy. Respectful speakers address listeners as unique human beings, refrain from any form of personal attack, and focus on issues rather than personalities. Responsibility means being accountable for what you say. For example, will learning about your topic in some way benefit the listeners? Do you use sound evidence and reasoning? Do you offer emotional appeals because they are appropriate rather than to shore up otherwise weak arguments? Fairness refers to making a genuine effort to see all sides of an issue and acknowledging the information listeners need in order to make informed decisions. Few subjects are black and white. Rarely is there only one right or wrong way to view a topic. Being civic-minded means caring about your community in words and deed. It means recognizing that things don't get better unless people volunteer their efforts to improve things. At the broadest level, being civic-minded is essential to the democratic process because democracy depends on our participation in it. Avoid plagiarism. Crediting sources is a crucial aspect of any speech. Plagiarism, the use of other people's ideas or words without acknowledging the source, is unethical. You're obviously plagiarizing whenever you simply cut and paste material from sources into your speech and represent it on your own. but it is also plagiarism to copy material into your speech draft from a source, such as a magazine article or website, and then change and rearrange words and sentence structure here and there to make it appear as if it were your own. Orally acknowledge your sources. The rule for avoiding plagiarism as a public speaker is straightforward. Any source that requires credit in written form should be acknowledged in oral form. These sources include direct quotations as well as paraphrased and summarized information, any facts and statistics, ideas, opinions, or theories gathered and reported by others. For each source that requires citation, you need to include the type of source, magazine, book, personal interview, website, etc., the author or origin of the source, the title or a description of the source, and the date of the source. Oral presentations need not include the full bibliographic reference, i.e. full names, dates, titles, volume, and page numbers. However, you should include complete references in a bibliography or at the end of a speech outline. For more on rules for avoiding plagiarism apply equally to print and online sources. For specific guidelines on how to record and cite sources found on websites, see From Source to Speech on page 68-69, which probably be chapter 5 or 6. Some exceptions to sources needing citation is the use of common knowledge, information that is likely to be known by many people, though such information must truly be widely disseminated. For example, it is common knowledge that in March 2011 a massive earthquake in Japan triggered a tsunami. It is not common knowledge that the last earthquake of similar magnitude to hit Japan happened 1,200 years ago. This fact requires knowledge of a source, in this case, a compilation of facts published by Francis Dieppe in Scientific American. Citing quotations, paraphrases, and summaries. When citing other people's ideas, you can present them in one of three ways. Direct quotations are verbatim or word-for-word presentations of statements made by someone else. Direct quotes should always be acknowledged in a speech. A paraphrase is a restatement of someone else's ideas, opinions, or theories in the speaker's own words. Because paraphrases alter the form but not the substance of another person's ideas, you must acknowledge the original source. A summary is a brief overview of someone else's ideas, opinions, or theories, while a paraphrase contains approximately the same number of words as the original source material stated as the speaker's own words. Summary condenses the same material, distilling only its essence. Note how a speaker could paraphrase and summarize with credit. The following excerpt from an article published in the New Yorker titled Strange Fruit, The Rise and Fall of Acai by John Calapinto. Acai was virtually unknown outside Brazil until 10 years ago when Ryan and Jeremy Black, two brothers from Southern Carolina, and their friend Edmund Nichols began exporting it to the United States. Since then, the fruit has followed a cycle of popularity befitting a teenage pop singer, a Miley Cyrus-like trajectory from obscurity to hype, critical backlash, and eventual ubiquity. Embraced as a superfruit, a potent combination of cholesterol-reducing fats and antioxidants, acai became one of the fastest-growing foods in history. That was the original version. Compare the original version of the excerpt to how it could be properly quoted, paraphrased, or summarized in a speech. Oral citation language is boldest for easy identification. Here's a direct quotation. As John Calapinto states in an article titled Strange Fruit, The Rise and Fall of Acai, published in the May 30th, 2011 issue of the New Yorker, the fruit has followed a circle of popularity befitting a teenage pop singer, a Miley Cyrus-like trajectory from obscuring to hype, critical backlash, and eventual ubiquity. Here's an oral paraphrase. The title, called "Strange Fruit: The Rise and Fall of Akai", published in May 30th, 2011 issue of The New Yorker, John Calapinto explains that until two brothers from Southern Carolina named Ryan and Jeremy Black, along with their friend Edmund Nichols, began exporting Akai to the United States 10 years ago, it was unknown here. Now, says Calapinto, Akai is seen as a superfruit that can help with everything from lowering cholesterol to fighting aging through its antioxidant properties. Here's an oral summary. In the title, called "Strange Fruit: The Rise and Fall of Akai", published in the May 30th, 2011 issue of The New Yorker, John Calapinto says that Akai, a fruit grown in Brazil that is unknown to this country until 10 years ago, is now marketed as a superfruit that has a powerful health benefit. For detailed directions or citing crediting your sources in your speech, there's chapter 10 of this handbook. Checklist. Correctly quote, paraphrase, and summarize information. 1. If directly quoting a source, repeat the source word for word and acknowledge whose words you are using. 2. If paraphrasing someone else's ideas, restate the ideas in your own words and acknowledge the source. 3. If summarizing someone else's ideas, briefly explain their essence and acknowledge the source. Fair use, copywriting, and ethical speaking. Copyright is a legal protection afforded the creators of original literacy and artistic works. When including copyrighted materials in your speeches, you must determine when and if you need permission to use such works. When a work is copyrighted, you may not reproduce, distribute, or display it without permission of the copyright holder. For any work created from 1978 to the present, a copyright is good during the author's lifetime plus 70 years after that. Unless it is extended, the work falls into public domain, which means anyone may reproduce it. Not subject to copyright are federal, but not state or local, government, publications, common knowledge, and selected other categories. An exception to the prohibitions of copyright is the doctrine of fair use, which permits the limited use of copyright works without permission for the purposes of scholarship, criticism, comment, news reporting, teaching, or research. This means that when preparing speeches for the classroom, you have much more latitude to use other people's creative work without seeking permission, though with credit in all cases, including display of copyright symbol circle C on any copyrighted handouts or visual aid you include in your speech. Different rules apply to the professional speaker whose use of copyrighted materials is considered part of a for-profit performance. Creative Commons is an organization that allows creators of works to decide how they want other people to use their copyrighted works. It offers creators 6 types of licenses, 3 of which are perhaps most relevant to students in the classroom. Attribution, which lets you use the work if you give credit the way the author requests. Non-commercial, lets you use the work for non-commercial purposes only. And no derivative works, which lets you use only verbatim, exact version of the work. The rules of fair use apply equally to works licensed under Creative Commons and law of copyright. Student speakers may search the Creative Commons website for suitable materials for their speech at creativecommons.org.